All right, Chaver, Be'ezat Hashem, let's get started over here. We are, Baruch Hashem, thank you, Chewy, for sponsoring the Lunch and Learn today. And our Lunch and Learn should be as a zechut, a merit for Refuah Shlema for Jacob Shakib, Yaakov Ben Dinah, as a zechut for all of our brothers and sisters throughout the world, and in particular for the soldiers who are now in very dangerous situations. We should only hear Besarat Tovot from all of them. Be'ezat Hashem. Amen. Today, we are going to learn a topic that is both fascinating, and Yosef was discussing this on Shabbat, so Yosef's going to love this. You know what I'm talking about here.
I met that woman.
We're going to learn today part of the story of Megillat Esther, part of the Purim story, that occurred during the party that Achashverosh made for his country, for Paras Madai, which was really the second party, that the Gemara teaches us something very strange that happened at this party, but it highlights for us the difference between when we get drunk, how we behave, and how the Goyim, the other nations behave when they get drunk. And there's a tremendous lesson involved here that I think we were discussing this a little bit on Shabbat actually, about how we're supposed to get drunk, but the point is, we can't get drunk like in the wrong way. If we get drunk in the wrong way, we're acting like them. Then we're celebrating Purim, but we're celebrating Purim like Achashverosh. What kind of a celebration? You're doing the wrong thing, that's wrong.
That's why we can't drink Black Label.
Well, that's why I don't drink Black Label, L'chaim.
So what are we going to do? Get drunk and learn Torah?
Exactly, 100%. Listen to the Gemara, Chevra. It's Yud Bet Amud Bet 12b Masechet Megillah. In the story of the Megillah, we know Achashverosh made two parties. He first made a party for the people distanced around the country, but not in the country. And then he made a party for Paras Madai, for the immediate officers in his country. And for the Jews in Shushan too. So the Pasuk tells us that there was a long, many-day party. And it says, Bayom HaShvi'i, it was on the seventh day, Ketov Lev HaMelech Be'ayin, when the king's heart was gladdened with wine. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. He's been drinking for 7 days, and only on the seventh day he's feeling good? He's been drinking already for 7 days. What do you mean, Ketov Leva Melech Be'ayin? So the Gemara says, what is Yom HaShvi'i referring to over here? What is our Yom HaShvi'i? Shabbat. Yom HaShvi'i is a reference to Shabbat, and it highlights the difference between the way he behaved when he got drunk and the way we behave on Shabbat when we drink. You see, this is our kula, our leniency. We're allowed to drink on Shabbat, but there's a special distinction. When we drink on Shabbat, hopefully, we do what the Gemara tells us, as opposed to the way he behaved. That's why it highlights Yom HaShvi'i. Let's see. Rav explains like this. Yom HaShvi'i Shabbataya. The seventh day was Shabbat. When the Jewish people on Shabbat eat and drink, matchilin b'divrei Torah v'divrei tishpachot. They start in divrei Torah, right? Yosef gets drunk. What happens? He starts saying 24/7 gematria, this, that, and the other. We start saying Poteach et yadecha. We start divrei Torah and divrei tishpachot, songs to Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Zmirot b'tishpachot. We start singing songs of praise and thanks. That's what we do when we get drunk. But those idolaters, those goyim shochlin v'shotin, when they eat and they drink, ein matchilin ela b'divrei tiflut. They only start talking about tiflut. Tiflut means not appropriate things, immoral discussions. It's unbelievable because you see that times change, but the nature does not change. You know, you go and the guys get drunk at the club. The first thing they start talking about is women. That's what they're talking about. And exactly that's what happened over there as well.
Woman is the flute.
Well, the club, the women...
Woman is the flute.
The flute?
You said they're speaking...
Oh, tiflut.
So
Inappropriate.
woman is tiflut?
Well, let's see. Tiflut means inappropriate conversation.
But woman is fine.
Woman is fine, just not inappropriate. It's true. I mean, let's see. And the Gemara tells us that's exactly what happened there. That's exactly what happened at this party. That's why it says Yom HaShvi'i wants to show us the difference. Shabbat, when we drink and we have a party, hopefully we talk about tishpachot, divrei Torah, beautiful. But them, see, it was not very holy. What happened at that party? So they're sitting at this party and everybody's wasted. 7 days of drinking is a long time. So they started to talk about whose women are more beautiful. That's what they started to talk about. This was, and slowly, as we'll see, the conversation went from bad to worse. It started to go downhill. Halalu Omrim, the people from Madai were saying, the officers from Madai, they were saying, Madiyot note that the Madai women are the most beautiful. Again, this is already not appropriate, but it's not as bad as it gets. V'halalu Omrim, and the people from Paras, the Persian people were saying, Parsiot note, the Persian women are the most beautiful. Right now, this isn't exactly a lofty discussion, right? This is tiflut. It's already not appropriate. But Amar lahem Achashverosh. Listen to what Achashverosh says. He turns to the people that are there, and he says the following. Now listen to the words he says. Kli she'ani mishtamesh bo. The vessel that I use. Who's he talking about?
His wife.
His wife. He's talking about his wife. The vessel that I use. He's talking about Vashti, who is the queen of all of civilization. Because we know Achashverosh was the king of 127 Medinot, 127 provinces, which was the entire civilized world. So we're talking about Vashti, who's the queen of the entire civilized society. This is a powerful woman. And he says, the vessel that I use, Eino lo Madai velo Parsi, she's not from Madai, she's not from Persia. Ela Kazdi, she's Babylonian. Actually, she's a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. She was a granddaughter, a daughter of Belshazzar. She was a descendant of the royal empire of Babylonia. So she's not from Madai, she's not from Paras, she's from Babylonia and from royalty. Ritzonchem ler'ota, would you like to see her? This is what he's saying about his wife.
Wow.
Now that's bad enough, right? It's bad enough. But what do the people there at the Seudah say back? Amru lo, the people said back to Achashverosh, yes, o bilvad shetei aruma. But she has to be naked. Can you imagine such a thing going on? We're talking about the king and queen of the entire world. I mean, forget about one country. This is the king and queen of the entire civilized world. 127 provinces is the entire society. The king says, the kli that I use, such a bizayon, it's such a disgraceful way to talk about anyone's wife. Kol shekain, a wife who comes from royalty, who's the queen of the world. Would you like to see? And the people say back, yeah, but she should come out naked. And the Gemara goes on to explain, she received this because she used to force Jewish girls to work on Shabbat naked. And the Gemara says, actually, she would have been agreeable to come out like this because she was just as immoral as was Achashverosh. But what happened? She didn't want to come out because HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated that she got tzarat, and then a Gabriel made her a tail, so she looked ugly, so she didn't want to come out, and then we continue on. We're not going to get into that today. But what happened, exactly, but what happens in the story here? She would have been agreeable. That's what I'm just pointing out. The Gemara says, Shneim ledvar avera nitkavnu. They both had intent for sin. So immorality just runs in the family over here. That's not the issue. But you hear they're talking about the queen, and on top of that, he says, Achashverosh says she should come out. They respond. The people respond, means the other officers there respond, she should come out naked. How do they have the chutzpah to say such a thing?
I guess at that time,
if the king is like
naked woman is not big.
This is clearly not normal. No, this is clearly not normal because the Gemara is using it to highlight how inappropriate it was. How do they have the chutzpah to say such a thing?
If the king is not,
one second. It's true they were drunk, I'm with you, but we're talking about someone that, we don't even understand what it means to have a king. A king means, at his word, your head is chopped off. Understand the awe, the pachad they have of this person? And they say she should come out naked? It's a crazy thing to say.
You want some?
Yeah.
And they weren't killed. By the way, he agreed to it. He was agreeable and he called her out like that.
Finish everything. Can I give you?
So what's the pshat over here? What is going on? How could they even think to say such a thing?
I'm saying, if the king himself, the head, is stinky.
Right.
We say in Hebrew, adag masriach me'arosh.
Right.
The fish is stinky from the head. So if the head is so stinky,
if you want to eat, go see the.
Why we looking on the simple?
Beautiful. So I would say like Matan is saying, but a little more. Let's say a little bit more, like this. I would suggest they would have not had the chutzpah to say such a thing unless they knew he would have agreed to it. Meaning it must be, they realized this guy Achashverosh and this queen Vashti were so immoral, were so inappropriate, that this would have been a normal request. that this would have been an acceptable type of request.
They did it before.
Maybe they did it before, that we don't know, but they must have understood this would not be a request that's inappropriate, because if that was the case, they wouldn't even dare to say such a thing, as it would mean the end of their life. So it must be based on the request that shows us Achashverosh was so immoral, he was so debased, he was so lowly. They understood saying such a thing would actually be something that he's agreeable and excited about, which he was. And Vashti was also excited about. But that shows you an incredible thing. We're talking about the head of all civilization. Today, you think about the president as like the most powerful president of the United States. The U.S. is the most powerful country. Saying U.S. is supposed to be the most powerful country, and the head of the U.S. is the president. The person who's the most, he would act in such a that. But Kol Shekain then he wasn't just the head of U.S. He was the head of the entire civilized world.
U.S. and Russia and China.
He's such a low character person, such an immoral person, and the wife, who's actually from royalty, by the way, she's from the royal line of Nebuchadnezzar, so lowly that they would have been willing to engage in such negative behavior, and the Gemara is telling us that's the difference. The highest point of society of them versus us at the Shabbat table. Now, before we see what the Ben Yoyada adds to this, we have to remember on Purim, when we're drinking, chas v'shalom, not to get anywhere near this kind of behavior. For sure, not this behavior. We have to make sure we're staying on the level of Devrei Torah and Tishpachot. And how you stay there, maybe don't drink too much. That's important. But we can never get anywhere near this, because the Gemara is, this is the difference.
They drink for 7 days. You can't expect anything else. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, probably alcohol poisoning you'd expect, but yeah. Right here.
מה עושים מצב כזה?
Yeah.
המלכה רוצה לבוא ערומה.
יפה מאוד, welcome.
Kitzu. That's this lesson number 1, which I think we have to keep that in mind. What do you say, Shlomo? Oh. Well, listen now, the Ben Yoyada explains. He adds even another level to this story. Very interesting. The Ben Yoyada says, "Kashe ech mele'am libam levakesh kazod me'et hamelech ala malka." How could they have had the chutzpah? How did they have the audacity to make such a request about the queen for the king? How could they have made such a request? And he explains it even deeper how perverted this society was. And listen to this. Venira li b'siyata dishmaya. Sometimes you learn about the perversions of other people, and we realize how we have to be so careful to stay away from this. How it's so bad. So he says, "Dekasher amar lahem ritzonchem lirota." When Achashverosh said, "Would you like to see her?" to these people, Hevinu sheba'ara bo esh ha'ta'ava lirot hanashim shelahem. They understood that he had a ta'ava to see their wives. Ritzonchem lirota, he was saying, would you like to see her, Vashti? Really, they understood what must he want to see their wives. Now follow along here. In order that if he finds one that's more beautiful, he'll take her as his wife. So they understood there was a whole psychology going on. And therefore, he said, they understood what was he trying to do. They should see her beauty, which would motivate them to bring their wives so that he could see their beauty. And this was a tactic so that he would be able to grab one of their wives for himself. You see where we're going here? This gets really perverted. I mean, it's intense.
But why are we supposed to be surprised?
Hold on. I'm just saying, like, he says an even deeper level here.
They used to do relations with dogs.
It's true, you're right. So they would bring their wives. So therefore, they didn't want this to happen. So they wanted to respond in a way that they could keep their wives. So how did they respond? How does that help? How would that avoid the situation for themselves? Great, we'll do a beauty pageant. Means they basically responded in the way that they understood that he's going, that all the women should come out. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. But they were saying it wouldn't be a proper mivchan, a proper beauty pageant, if they come out with their clothing. Because clothing add beauty to a woman. So they said the only way that this could be done as a mivchan amiti, a true beauty pageant, would be so they said to Achashverosh, if you want to do a beauty pageant, they understood, and they were right, this is where he was going according to the Ben Yoyada. They would all have to come out naked so you could distinguish between the beauty of Vashti and the other ones.
But what's the benefit of the sarim?
Hold on, now why did they say this? Because they thought when they would say that to Achashverosh,
they say, no, I don't want to.
That's a bizayon for the queen. We can't go that far. But they were wrong. Why were they wrong? He got excited. Adarabba, wonderful. This is a great idea. They thought they assumed he is decency. He's not going to tell his wife to come out naked. Chas v'shalom. But what happened? And then he'll say, okay, if we can't do that, let's just forget about this idea. And they figured they'll save their wives that way. 1 second. Something good. But Achashverosh had a different thought. He was such an adulterer. He was so involved in his ta'avot. He said, this is a great idea. They should all come out naked. Can you imagine? They're playing mind games over here. First, he says that she should come out to show off the beauty, and they understood that means he wants to see their wives. They wanted to avoid that, so they said, well, in order to determine who's really beautiful, they have to come without clothing, because they thought in saying that, he would say, okay, that's too much of a bizayon. Forget it. Let's just move on to talking about golf. But instead what happened was, he was such a manuval, this guy was such a perverted person, he said, wonderful, bring them all out without clothing on. And Vashti was agreeable too. He didn't care about the honor of his wife. He said, look, this is a time to have a good time.
Vashti didn't want to come. She didn't come.
I'll get to it in a minute. I'll explain in a minute. This is great. And he said, okay, great. First Vashti will come out naked. So everyone else brings their wives out naked as well. Etc. And then everything was saved. We know the story. You understand what's going on over here? What a crazy story we have over here?
Maybe you want to have an orgy there.
That's what he wanted. A Meshuggah Azach. Crazy guy over here. We're talking about the highest.
This world is very normal. It's not so bad, you know.
Yeah,
what Yosef's saying is true. Nature doesn't change, and if there's ta'ava, and people want to engage in that ta'ava, it still will happen today as well. So the Megillah is teaching us over here such an important topic, which is so. Baruch Hashem, here in Shavei Ezra, I've been here in the past. It's very appropriate. Baruch Hashem. But unfortunately, there's some places, Purim becomes like this day that everything is loose and everyone can do whatever they want. And chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom. That's not what Purim is all about. The opposite is, we know, that's what Achashverosh was doing. We don't drink like Achashverosh. It's like Matan just said, it's a specific time for tefillah, to daven.
Anything a person asks.
Whatever a person asks for, he receives. It's a special time of learning Torah. They accepted the Torah me'ahava. We'll discuss that more at a different time, God willing, before Purim. There's so many important things. Not to act chas v'shalom, anything like the perversions we just learned about in regards to Achashverosh. And this is the top of society. This is the president of the entire world and his wife who comes from royalty in Babylonia. It's unbelievable. So the Megillah is teaching us this, so we should know, wait a second. I have to make sure I'm going to behave appropriately on Purim, because there is a mitzvah, chayavinish levesume, to drink, etc., but do it like a mensch, do it like the Torah tells us to do it, with divrei tishpachot, with divrei Torah. I think it's a very important lesson. And sometimes you see the perverseness of the other side. It highlights to us how careful and important it is to focus in on the right things. Okay, we'll stop here, Chevra. I have to run early, I apologize. But we're going to stop here for the day.
Very,
this is amazing stuff, huh? Zat Hashem. I'm sorry, I have to run. Anyone still pick up on this? I'm sorry, I have to go now. I have to run a little bit.
Giving everybody with the tongue out. How are we going to finish that?
Thank you again, yeah.